All right, is that on? There we go. Whew. All right. If we could maybe get another microphone, and then when I ask the kids questions, they can kind of do their thing. It just feels like there's no batteries in it. I think it's light. So, well, good morning. Hello, you too, on my left. You're kind of scaring me over here. So this is the group. This isn't everybody, but a good chunk of them showed up. Some are already off to school, and others are on vacation and trying to get the last ones in. And so we think this is important to continue to share with you guys what happens outside of church, what happens outside of Sunday morning. And so in the past, this past summer, maybe you guys have seen a lot, maybe you've been back and forth and you haven't noticed, but we've had a lot of missionaries come and speak, which has been great because it's helped me do everything and do all the trips and such, and plus preach here and there. So that's been great. But before even that, it's extremely important, in my opinion, to be able to have missionaries, and you guys can see them and you can pray for them and we can hear about what's going on. And it's just as important as when we do ministry. That's why I think it's important that we get up here every so often and talk about other types of ministries that we have and give reports. And I know it can't get you there and really understand what it's like to be there, but it still is something that puts us up front and says, all right, we are a church that's much more than just Sunday morning. Sunday morning is to see each other, is to be praying together, to be encouraged by the word, and then to go out. And hopefully that's what we're doing. We're doing Matthew chapter 28, and these are results of going out into the world, however it may look. If it's VBS, to a mission trip, to adult small groups, whatever it is, that we continue to talk about that and be encouraged by it. So that is something that is important to this church. So if you're new, this is why we do this type of thing. And so the beginning, just so that you know, we have 3 mission trips that we take. We kind of rotate them. It's changed in the past. Sometimes we've had 4 when we used to go to the Indian reservation. But right now, we have a rotation of the destination unknown, where we just don't know where we're going. That usually keeps us in the States somewhere. Then we go into an inner city mission. We've been to Chicago and St. Louis and Long Beach and different places like that. And then we go to Mexico. Mexico is very expensive, and so when we do these other trips, they're not as expensive, and so it kind of helps build up that fund so that we can do Mexico. We did Mexico every year. We would definitely have to charge way more. It's about $650 for each person to go on a Mexico trip, but we only charge $150, $175 to go, which is extremely reasonable. If you go to any other church, they're going to tell you you're going to have to raise funds and that kind of thing. But that's because of the great fundraiser that we do. It's just one that you guys are so generous at. We have about $4,000 the last couple of years that you've raised at the Valentine's Banquet. It's the only one that we do. Sometimes when we're a little low on money, we will have them write some letters to a few family members asking for $20, and that kind of helps us get over the hump if we kind of get low on funds. So that's kind of how that works. And so how I started off, we always have our devos every night. And so the first night when we started, this is kind of what we talked about. And when it comes to mission trips, especially short-term mission trips, it is a lot about us going. It's not so much about the people that we're helping, especially when we go to Chicago and some of these other places. We're definitely helping them a little bit, but when we're in Chicago and we're helping them with the thrift store, they could do without us. That's more about relationships and just seeing what's happening. Mexico's a little different because we are actually giving them a building. It's not huge. It's not like a mansion. It's not going to be something that they maybe live in forever. But it is a lot more substantial than we've had in the past. We give them a bathroom. They have bunk beds. They have an AC unit now. And we drywall it, and it's a 3-room house about 21 feet by 21 feet or so. So it's actually not too bad. But still in that, it's about us. It's really about them learning on the trip and really practicing their faith. And so the first night I get there, I'm saying, all right, this is what we can't do. This is not a vacation. We're not going on here just kind of for the experience. If you're coming just for the experience, that's all it's ever going to be. It's not going to be much meat more than that. If you're going because your parents made you, well, hopefully you'll get something out of that as well, which we had 1 or 2 that parents made. Anybody make you here? Maybe kind of. Not so much? Okay. They're not. I knew of one that didn't want to go, but then he really enjoyed it. So in my whole spiel with that in the beginning was to say let's get along. Let's not complain. When we go to a country that doesn't have what we have, it's very easy to be humbled. It's very easy to see how we become petty, how we complain. And so I told him, it's easy to go off on maybe an intern and say that intern is not doing very well like we did a few years ago. And let's not do that. Let's not complain. Let's not ask, well, why are we doing it this way? Or why are we going there? Why? And just have all these questions and complaining. Let's just be humble. Let's be grateful. And let's just go with the flow and actually do what God has asked us to do when it comes to those types of things. And I think they did pretty good. We didn't have this group worked very, very, very well together. And they might have hid some of the arguments, but I don't think there really was. We didn't get in a fight like last time, right, Ethan? That was a whole nother story from before. So we're going to do this kind of old school, see if it works. We're just going to go through the days. It'll be pretty quick, and I'll ask questions as we go. And because I've seen everybody else use the clicker, I wanted to use the clicker because I haven't yet. So we had 15 students, and we had 4 adults, myself, Tara, Steve, and Michelle. And so that's how we went. Rhonda got us these cool shirts. Thank you, Rhonda. And so that's us taking off. I show this video, or this picture, because it's Whataburger. Anybody been to a Whataburger? Like them? Yeah, I like them. But we get sick of fast food. One of the things I tell them is you'll be sick of fast food by the time this is over, and it messes us all up because it's like 5-6 meals straight. You think you're going to enjoy it the first day. Everyone's all happy the first day, and then they're like, I can't eat another McDonald's or Subway or Taco Bell. I'm fine. I'll just fast. I don't need to eat anymore. This is our bird that we hit along the way. Everybody say, "Aw, poor thing." What was its name? George the Third. And so even when we crossed the border coming back into America, the lady was like, you have a bird in your hood, right? It's like, yeah, we do. It's got a name. She thought it was funny. And it just disappeared. I don't know where it went. But I show you this because this is where we stayed the first night. So we drove about 7 hours. It's about a 12-hour trip altogether. We just call up a church, Christian church, and I say, hey, can we stay in your place? Just like they do here. If you guys don't know, a lot of groups stay in the sanctuary, and they stay in the nursery, and they're coming through doing different trips all the time. One of the reasons we got a shower for people, because I know what it's like to not have a shower, and I always just tell the sponsors that come in, there is a shower in the back. You might not want to tell all the kids, but at least you can get a shower. Because we don't have showers here, and they always kind of moan and groan a little bit about that. But we stayed in Sonora, in a nice little church. We're about 2 hours from the border. So we come in that next day ready to work, because we really needed that first work day, knowing we're going to be in there late. So we got up pretty early. We got to Del Rio, which was about 2 hours away. It's just right over the border. We travel maybe 10 minutes into the border, and that's it to our site. So there's a warehouse that has all the tools. These are the interns giving us a kind of quick spiel. We're all dressed and ready to go and work that morning and cross the border. So any of you, who did I ask? Will, what did you think of the border crossing? What were you a little scared about it? Were you anxious about it? Or just tell us about crossing the actual border?
I wasn't really scared, but right when we crossed, you could see that difference, because it just changed automatically, and it was really easy getting through because they just looked in.
Yeah, it was very easy.
Didn't really do anything.
Okay, good. Yeah, the contrast about just being in Del Rio, which is about 40,000. Acuña is about 100,000, and definitely the second you get over the border, it changes. Now, I did have my mother and some other people, caution me about going across the border. Jason, do you know what's going on? There's a crisis at the border. And I said, yes, Mom, thank you. And the guy in Sonora that we stayed at the house, he came over to me and whispered and said, there's just chaos at the border. And I was like, I think we'll be all right. And of course, nothing. It was easier than normal. Usually they make us take all of our stuff out, and they just lay it on the floor, and we have to pick it up and put it back in. They just let us in. It's like, come on in, no big deal. Yes, you build houses, we're good with that. So that's a little bit about what it looked like when we were driving in. So the first day, this is what we're doing. We're just getting the ground level. We thought it was pretty level. It wasn't as level as we thought. And then we have people working on the wood. There's our huge pile of wood. The whole thing cost about $8,900 for all that equipment and all the supplies. When we put in the meals, when we put in staying the night at the place, and we put in insurance, we put in another van that we rented, the whole thing is right around $12,000 to $13,000 to go on this trip. So it's not cheap at all. When we do other mission trips, it costs about $2,000. So just so you can kind of get the idea of, it does take a good chunk of change to do that. The family that we were building for was a husband and a wife, a 17-year-old boy that I never saw. Did you guys ever see him? I never saw the boy. A 13-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy that we did see quite a bit, and the parents were there almost every day. But they didn't live on the site. They weren't there. They lived across town, and they were moving there because she had a sister that lived right below. And so I think that was one of the reasons we didn't get to see the family very often, is because they lived across town. I'm sure the 17-year-old boy was working, and I think we saw the 13-year-old girl the day of the dedication. I think. We weren't real sure, which is a difference between some years and others. So we cut wood. That was the other thing, to cut. Who are our cutters? It was Danae and Jada? Jada and Steve. So they get a list. They go, all right, cut all this wood just like this. And that's a whole day of just cutting the wood. And then we're breaking up the rock. We're doing all the foundation work and everything. Have any of you guys ever poured a foundation before? Anyone? Before, yeah, the guys that have been there before, and that's it. So we have no experience. It's not like we have any idea what we're doing. These interns just tell you exactly what to do, and they do a really good job. There's the name, good cut, nice job, make Dad proud, way to go. You didn't mess up any of them, right? No, that was good, very good. And just kind of, we won't watch all the videos, but kind of get an idea of the site and what it looked like. The cutting crew. All right, girls, how are we doing?
Good, great.
Good morning, right, so far?
Yeah.
Have you cut any wrong yet?
Not yet.
Sure.
No, we still have all of our fingers.
Ooh. Very good, thanks, Jada. They did. Now, the cement came in about 1. We got there about 10, which is a late day to start working. Usually we're there around 6:37. This was different because the truck can get right in there. It was poured in 10 minutes. I mean, it was like the easiest pour we've ever had when it came to a foundation. The last build we had took about 2 hours to lay the foundation because we had to wheelbarrow it all the way in, which was a lot of work. So just even asking about that when it comes to the construction. Cordell. Where's Cordell? This is Cordell, if you guys don't know Cordell. He drives in like 10 hours to come to youth group every Wednesday, and because he loves us so much. And he decided to come on the trip, which was awesome. And just having no construction or little construction, what'd you think of that? Were you nervous going on? Like, how's this going to work? And just tell us about that a little bit.
When we first started, I was a little nervous because I was like, we have no idea what we're doing. But the interns explained it really well, and they were good directors of what we need to do and how to do it.
Yeah, and then when we would mess up, what would they say?
They usually fixed it for us.
Yeah, they're like, it's okay, it's all right, no big deal, we'll just fix it. And we had a few, but really on this build, we didn't have any huge setbacks. So the first night, we got that done, we got the foundation. We went to the dorm, we dropped all of our stuff off, and then we went to the local, convenience store. Always have to have Coke because it tastes way better in Mexico, and so does the Pepsi. I had the Pepsi this year, and it was like way better than American Pepsi, I'm just saying. So that was fun, and to go to that. And then the evenings, what we do, just so you know as well, nice Coke shot there, Ethan. Oh, and that was his birthday. That was your birthday. He's always on a mission trip on his birthday. So we sang happy birthday throughout the day, all the time. And he was starting to get super annoyed with me, which was funny. But we always had, we took showers. They had 3 showers in there. This is the dorm. This is kind of where if we did food on our own, we would have to cook it all in there. We didn't do that this year. First year, we had meals made for us. 3 meals a day. It's about $25 per person per day, and it was worth absolutely every dime of that. Anybody that had to cook before on mission trips, oh, it was wonderful. It was authentic Mexican food. This family would come in. We knew what time we would be there, and none of this stress of trying to cook spaghetti and Frito pie and whatever else we had. So that was worth every dime we had when it came to the meals. And the breakfasts were great. Everything was great. So in the evenings, we would have a devotion. All the seniors, a good chunk of the seniors did devotions. They would have a journal. They would do their own devo that we handed out. And then we'd hang out for about an hour or so and then head to bed around 10:15 is when we went to bed. So that's day 1. That's kind of what the dorm looked like. We're all in the same building. It was just basically a church like this, and it had bunk beds, and then it had showers outside in a separate area. Day 2, which is actually day 3, I guess, day 2 work day, we'd always have a devo out there in the beginning, and the intern would give the devotion. That's the family right there by Steve. And so this day was, the first day was probably the hottest and one of the hardest days. I think day 2 wasn't so bad. Ethan, tell us about day 2 a little bit.
Right. So day 2 actually was probably the easiest day, like physically. All we did was, well, we finished up building the walls, and then we nailed the walls into the concrete. So that wasn't too bad at all. We had to fix one wall that was kind of messed up that we didn't really know how to read. So I guess, I don't know what happened there, but we fixed it, so it was fine. So we nailed the walls into the foundation, got those all set up. That was nice. And then we put on the rafters up above, and then started to put the blackboard on outside, and then we started with installation. So it wasn't really that bad that day, especially with, this is probably like the best hardworking group that I've had on a mission trip, so they were all great. And like Jason said, we never got in like any big arguments, and we did good. So, it was good, and it was way better than the next 2 days, which would be consisted of drywall, which it's not really that hard, but it's just so annoying because you actually think you're like getting somewhere, but it just keeps going on and on. So, and you're sweating because there's no breeze and you're enclosed in this tiny little spot. So,
yes. Yeah. Said to every guy ever, right, about drywall. It's the worst. It's the worst. Even Kurt hates drywall, right? We all can't stand it. You always think it's going to be great, like this is easy, and then it just never ends. So that was day 2, and we put the walls up. It's kind of exciting because you get to see the walls go up. You see something actually there. The walls were all made the day before, and we just nail them right into the cement, and it's kind of fun to watch. The kids, you kind of see their eyes getting bigger, like, oh, we're actually doing something here, and how'd this happen? So that's always a kind of a fun day, but it is a little bit of the easier day. And so I would say that we really need to work on our hammering. Like, nobody really was good at hammering. They're over there, ting, 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 ting. We're going to be here all day. Cordell did good. Cordell finally figured that. Yeah, some people were just tapping it. All right. We got 4 days, people, to build this thing. We got to get her done. So put it together. Like we said, we did have one wrong. They just cut it and redid it. No big deal. I think there's quite a bit of here. We'll get to day 4 here. All right. So then day 4, which is we put this black board up. That's going to hold the stucco. So that's what we covered. If you're wondering what the outside wall is, we put chicken wire around it. That's putting the rafters up as well. Sorry. Yeah. Again, we don't know what you're doing, but when they tell us where to go and where to hammer, it goes pretty well. And the interns did a good job at explaining all that to us. So let me get to day 4 here. We'll just zip through. Sorry. There's the installation, which is absolutely miserable. We did get a hacky on top of the roof, so that was important. Day 4. It was up on a hill, beautiful sunsets. We had a breeze kind of the whole time. The heat was pretty rough, but not as bad as we thought. So stucco comes in. Andelin, or actually, who did the stucco?
It's only taking us like 10 minutes.
Tell us about the stucco and that whole process of how it works. Kind of see, we did one wall that looked pretty bad, and once you start figuring it out, it looks a little bit better.
So stucco I didn't really like very much, but it wasn't terrible. It was hard to, I guess, push it up and get the high spots, I guess, and in between, by the roof and in between windows. So it took a long time. But we got it done that day, and
yeah, and we pull wire, chicken wire.
Chicken wire. That took a long time the day before. Lots of nailing that in. Yeah, and then once it was pretty much dry, we sanded it, and that was annoying because it would dry too fast, and then it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But
so that was probably the hardest. It seems like it's going to be easy, but it's pretty difficult. Yeah. And they all know how to do stucco out there very, very well. So when we were walking around in the neighborhood and we see a stuccoed house, we're like, ooh, They know what they're doing. We do not. we kind of felt bad a little bit when we saw other people's houses. We did have a new mixing machine, but that's how you mix it. So Daisha, how did that go? How did you make the stucco real quick?
So first we started with sifting the sand and to get all the rocks out of the sand. And we wore our hands smooth. Our hands are so soft afterwards. But then we filled buckets with sand and put bucketfuls of sand, water, concrete, and lime in the stucco mixer, and then it was mixed, and then it was ready to put on the house.
Yeah. They had the fun job because it looked like they were making little castles, but it wasn't fun. They said it hurt. So there's us putting the stucco. Michelle just had a fit with it. She was just not very happy the whole time. She couldn't quite figure it out, but she didn't give up. She kept going. And then the drywall came, and that was going up. And again, these guys did awesome. She came in and kind of told them what to do. And I usually have to jump in there because I'm really good at drywall. But we didn't. They did a fantastic job, and really, I was impressed. The electrical. Tell us about the electrical real quick, Annalyn.
Okay, so the second work day was when Jackson Piper and we ran all the wiring through each stud, and so he got frustrated with the corners, where the studs met at the corners, and so I just stood there with needle nose pliers while he fidgeted and everything, and I just handed him the pliers and kept my mouth shut the whole time. And then, we pulled all the wires through, put some through the outside of the house for the AC unit, and then the last day Macy and I hooked up the electrical sockets and put in the ceiling fan. So I had done it before the last trip, so I kind of knew what I was doing, and it was pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they get lights, fixtures, the whole bit, and wired for AC, which is really great. And Macy did great she floated the cement slab, so she did a really good job. We were all impressed with her. We're like, how'd that happen? So there's the roof, we put the tent on. Then we went, each evening we kind of did a different thing. This is the river that we go to. It's spring fed. It's right next to a huge lake. And so it's really cold. It's not real deep. It's a lot of fun to go to. And then Ethan kind of was like, hey, I want to get baptized there next time we go. And so sure enough, did a baptism, which was awesome. Yeah, there we go. So that was fun. And there all kinds of people are out there just swimming, kind of using it as recreation, which is pretty great. Again, that's the dorm. And then the last day, these guys, of course, thought this day would get everything done. I'm like, no, drywall goes slow. But we did finish up the last day on everything. The dogs that were there, we didn't touch them, we didn't pet them, but they were a lot cuter than they have been. They didn't have the mange like we used to see. And there was only one that was biting everybody, so it was good. And we did get to play with the kids quite a bit. So the last day, there's our bunk beds. We're kind of just finishing up on the electrical, making sure it works, putting the bunk bed in. Another group went to the store and got some more stuff for the family as a housewarming. And kind of just getting everything cleaned up and ready to go. And then we do a dedication. Dedication was pretty cool. Anybody want to talk about the dedication? Tell us, Eric. Tell us about the dedication.
Well, the dedication was pretty cool, I'd say. We had to have a translator because no one else could speak both Spanish and English. So what would happen was someone would speak in Spanish, and then we'd have the translator speak for us, and then it'd just kind of go back and forth like that. But I guess it was just kind of really cool. I mean, it was really unfortunate that we didn't get to hang out with the family, but you could just see that, during the dedication, that us coming and building the house for them definitely impacted their lives in such a great way, and they were deeply affected by it. So it was just really cool to see that happen again. I mean, us seniors, we've seen it happen before, but it was just also kind of cool, especially since we didn't hang out with the family. So.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. This is the last screw that we put in, I think.
Screw goes in.
Actually, that was set up. I heard them all scream, and I went, hey, do that again. We got to get a video and make it look like we actually did that. So there's kind of the finished product, and it was pretty cool. It's pretty neat to be able to look back and see something that wasn't there. They kept saying that over and over again. There was nothing here just 2 days ago. It's like, I know. You guys built a house. Good job. So this is the dedication. The intern kind of gave some words, and Ainsley wrote up a letter that kind of helped write, and she spoke it in Spanish to them as well. And there's the husband, there's the wife, and then she talked a little bit. She was one of the pastors, I believe, that kind of helped with getting the church. And she did say something that I thought was interesting. She said, you guys came out here and you came away from your families, you came away from work so that we could be here, so that you guys can show and work and give us a house. And she just appreciated it that we were away from our families for a week. And again, when people can see that we are doing something for Christ, they notice it, and it's an outreach that is pretty awesome. She just said thank you and appreciate it all. I gave some words, and then they pass out keys to the house. We give them a Bible, and then they also hammer up the Casas por Cristo plate. Then we prayed over the house, and then they made us lunch, which was pretty fantastic. They made us tamales and hung out, and that was basically the end when it comes to what we did. Then that night, there's some of the stuff that we had that we bought them, kind of housewarming gifts that we all got for them as well. There's the tamales. I don't know why, but it was kind of fun having Will in there. I kind of snuck that one in. And then the next day when we were leaving, we have to check everything in. Went to Acuna, signed, and here's the thing about Acuna. The first time we went, it seemed like a pretty desolate place. The economy obviously was pretty rough. What I have noticed, being there for the third time, is that it's starting to change in a good way. I actually saw 3 people jogging, and that sounds weird, but you don't see that in countries or in cities that are in poverty. I mean, they're out there exercising. And they have these different things now that, like a big mega center, they had basketball hoops up, and people were basically going to the park and hanging out and doing things with their family. And in these neighborhoods that are pretty rough, you'd see a really bad shack that they were living in, and then another really nice kind of house right next to it, and then maybe a shack that we just didn't see before. When we took the seniors to the ice cream place, it was like a really nice ice cream shop. So to me, that's extremely encouraging that something good is happening in Acuna, and the economy is definitely getting better. There's definitely more jobs, was what I was told. We always take the seniors out on Thursday. I always try to take them to something authentic, like some Mexican food, but we were having authentic Mexican every night, and I didn't want to miss it, so we just took them to ice cream. And so and it was a really nice ice cream shop. One of the things we did get to do later that week was play soccer, and the kids kind of came out of the woodwork and just really hang out with them, which was kind of fun. The 7th grade boys, I would say their middle school, were getting beat by our boys, but then they recruited some high schoolers that tore them up pretty good. So they humbled them pretty fast there. We got up in the morning, obviously. Josiah, what did you think about crossing the border the other direction? Were you nervous about it? What did you think?
No, I really wasn't nervous. I was more or less nervous for Will. Because
that was going to be hard to get you across.
Because when we crossed, we gave out our birth certificates and passports, and he went like, Jonathan, Josiah, Will? Yeah. I just stared at him. It was funny. But it took a while to get through because there was a lot of people entering the U.S. at the time.
Yeah, we were there for about 20 minutes in traffic, which really, during that hour, is not too shabby. Then we went to a real famous place called the Cadillac Ranch. It was really weird. A bunch of Cadillacs in the ground and spray paint everywhere. That was their entertainment. That was the fun thing, coming home. But we crossed the border very easily. They said they just took the passports, they took the birth certificates. If you're 19 and under and you're going on a church trip, all you need is a birth certificate, a copy of, and then if you're older than that, you need a passport. So they just took them all, they opened up the doors, they kind of called, Josiah, you'd say, yeah, here, Cordon, all right, Cordell, here, and that was it, and let us on our way, and it wasn't difficult to get through. We did get checked 3 times. There's 3 checkpoints, but that's pretty normal, not too different. They spray painted the whole entire road. So there's spray paint on the Milo. It was in a field of Milo. The Milo was all different colors. It was weird. Stayed in another big church along the way, mega church, but just so you know, they had all cool stuff, but we have the same cool stuff at the cave. It was just bigger. So there. And then we
hit record.
Exchanged everything. And
here we are.
The funny deal is we were at the parked the Dival van, and it had ants in it when we got there. Like we parked right over an anthill, and there were 1,000 ants on the way home for the 2-hour trip from there. So that is our trip. And just, and let me just give you something real quick. If you want to open up to Matthew chapter 25, if you would. I kind of shared this with everybody. And I want to get kind of your guys' thoughts of the trip real fast, and we'll close. Tara and Steve. Go to Matthew. Let's see exactly what verse. Chapter 25, verse 31. And so having the devotions that we had and talking about the things, obviously they start to see the difference between Mexico and America. And the people of Mexico are just wonderful people. Michelle made the same comment when she was there. I never felt threatened. I never felt unsafe. When we go to other places, we feel unsafe. When we go to Long Beach, they literally had told us, we don't want you here. They screamed it from the cars. Go home. Go home to Montana, is what one guy said. Well, we're from Kansas. But they didn't want us there. When we go to Haiti, it's a scary place. Some people really want you there. Some people don't. Mexico is the opposite. They want us there. They're extremely hospitable. They're very loving, and they're very grateful of what they have, even though they might be living in a shack. And then these roads that are horrible. The roads to get to our site was atrocious. I mean, I was like, good thing we have a nice big van, because I didn't know how we'd make it up the hill with all the gravel and potholes and everything else that was in the way. And so telling them the last night, this to me is a culmination of us doing ministry as a church. When at the end, Jesus is talking to us and he's saying, here it is. You guys have been doing this, and this is maybe what it's looked like. And he gets to even heaven and hell, and us as a church of what we've been doing and what we've been noticing. And I think sometimes when we come from a trip like this and we are grateful what we have, we're humbled, and we start to become grateful, and we're not petty then. We're not criticizing, because what I believe happens if we are not doing ministry, what do? We start to criticize. We start to just sit back and go, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Well, that doesn't make sense, because you're not in it. You're not in the game doing what needs to be done. When you're in the game doing ministry, all you care about is how are we able to get to these people? Are we sharing the gospel with them? What resources do we need to be able to go out to them even more and more and more? And what are some better ways we can actually do ministry with these people? If a missionary came to Oakley, Kansas, like we go to Mexico, these are the things we're dealing with, and these are the ways that we could reach them. If somebody came to Western Kansas, what would they say about us as a missionary? Well, I think what they would say a lot of times is they lose focus sometimes, because they got everything. They got everything they need. And they start to just sit around and get bored a little bit. And when they get bored, they start to criticize. They start to be petty about things. They start to talk about people. And that becomes our conversation. My challenge to you guys, because this is kind of what we feel like when we come back from a place like this. Look at your conversations this week. Consciously just try to remember what you're really talking about. How often in those conversations you have this week are positive conversations? They're not negative. They're not going off on a coworker, going off on some kind of gossip somebody was talking about and somebody in town. It's not, complaining about this person or complaining about that person. Add them up in your head. How many positive, grateful conversations are we having? I was talking with somebody from the church the other day at the fair. It's fun to people watch, right? You're just sitting there and you're watching all these people go by. And it could be easy just to talk, bad about people. Well, there's Jimmy over there, and he's, I heard this and that. And I, asked the question, why is it? Why is it easy to talk about negative things than it is easy things? I mean, that Jimmy, he's a great guy. I mean, the other day, you don't see that as much, because it's not as fun, right? It's kind of boring to talk about that. It's not as juicy, maybe. And it's hard just to go on and on about somebody, how great they are. But it's easy to kind of go off and be negative in that. So how many conversations this week will you have? And are we focused more on the negative of stuff than the positive stuff? And do we become very petty? Do we become very critical? And as Americans, I think we do, because we're not grateful for what we have. We say it, but I don't think all the times we act that way. To me, this is what Jesus is kind of saying here in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. It says, when the Son of Man comes to his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly story. All the nations, or his glory, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people, one from another, as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. He will put his sheep on the right and his goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you are blessed by my Father, who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, and thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you and as a stranger invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you? The king replied, I tell you the truth, whatever you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, in the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry and thirsty and a stranger, needing clothes and sick in prison, and did not help you? He will reply, I tell you the truth, whatever you did not do for the one of the least of these, you did not do for me. And they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to an eternal life. And we will be judged on how we are as a church. And my point, my argument is that when we're involved in ministry, we don't have that critical spirit. When we are doing God's work, we don't have that that's there. We don't get bored. If we're going to complain, we're complaining about stuff that is good to complain about. Like, we've got too many people to try to go share the gospel with. How do we do this? We need more money to go do this for these people. We're not just being petty with the things. And when we come back from a trip like this, that's definitely what you see. That, man, we need to be grateful. We need to be humbled by what we do have so that we can go out. And especially when we see the people of Mexico, they definitely mirror that to us. And I think we can learn a lot from them. So that's kind of how we close the week. And it's definitely a lesson that I think all of us had learned, and I continue to learn every time I go. Just real quick to close, and we'll be done. I just want to hear your thoughts as adults. What did you think of the trip real quick, and what you liked about it, and
Jason knows I'm stage fright always, but I just want to thank you guys for the support, but also these young men and women were incredible. They were hard workers. They were always positive. The interns, you can tell that they had the love of Jesus, and we have a fantastic leader right here. And just like when he was driving, and he would navigate through the storm. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous, but there was a storm that was ahead of us, and he just slowed down. I had a little bit of chance to navigate on my little bitty phone, and I about turned us into a highway the wrong way. So we are very thankful for this.
Yeah, I would echo Tara and what's been said about this group of, when you get to something like this, you can't all do the same thing. And this group did work hard, but they took on various tasks and split up and did that. And I mean, if everybody wanted to do the same thing, we might still be there building it. But they, it maybe wasn't their favorite task, but they jumped in and said, okay, this needs to be done, and went into it with a lot of effort. And I was very impressed with that because they just saw a need and jumped in there and did that. And I thought that spoke really highly of the kids that was on this group on this trip. What's that?
Tell about your passport.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if he was going to be able to go on the trip. When I applied for my passport, they went in, did everything, and I said, "Oh, I see here I can expedite it." And they said, "When's your trip start?" And I said, "Here." He said, "Don't do it. You don't need to expedite it. All they do is take your money, but you're going to get it in the same amount of time. You got plenty of time. You'll get it with time to spare." And we're getting closer and closer and closer, and there's no passport. So I call and they say, "Well, it's in process." Okay, but I said, "What does that mean?" They say, "Well, it's in process," and no time frame again. And so I got some advice to call one of our senator's office and see what they could do to help. So I called Senator Marshall's office. They were extremely helpful. They jumped right in there, and they said, if he will expedite it, give payment right now, I think we'll make it. Well, they took the money, they started, but it still didn't go anywhere. So they called and said, it's in New Orleans, it's at the processing center, it's there, but we're not getting any information on it. But we have a processing center in Aurora, Colorado, and we had a person that was going to do theirs in person cancel, and if you can be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, they'll do yours. So I said, okay, yeah, tell them I'll be there. So went there and got there about an hour early. They started, and I walked out there about 2 hours later with the passport in hand and was heading back. A little bit of a funny story about that. My other one came while I was gone. So I have two. They said, "Hey, don't take the one that you got in the mail because it's not any good." They said, "You get down there with that one," and so I guess I'm going to make sure I get one. So I got two of them. But I will say one thing that Jason challenged us in Amarillo. The trip's almost done. And the house is built, and it was an incredible experience. But he said, "Don't let it end here. Missions isn't a week-long thing. Missions, when kids get back into school, it could be the person for those college kids in their dorm. It could be the kid on your team or in your classroom or your next door locker. But that also applies for all of us. It could be a person in our family. It could be a person across the street, the next office over, or whatever." Missions and taking, a tangible thing like the house is one thing, but sharing Jesus is something that we should never stop doing. It didn't end when we got back into Kansas, and he challenged all of us, not just the kids, but as the sponsors, and I think that's a challenge that should be well received.
Thank you, guys. The sponsors did fantastic. If you're all about schedule and right on, maybe Mexico's not for you. You do have to be flexible and be able to go with the punches, and they did a fantastic job, and Michelle was also on that trip. So we're going to close. So if Mary Beth, you want to come on up, and we'll close with that. Let me just pray for the trip, or about the trip, and just the rest of the week, and then we'll close with our song. Father, we thank you for today. I thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to do this. I thank you for such a encouraging congregation that we can continue to do this, and maybe we can do more when it comes to adults and other trips and other things as well, that we can learn from these experiences and really live out Matthew chapter 28 in any way we can. And so, Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for the future mission trips that you are in control of, and we just thank you for this week ahead of us, and pray that we can be the light to the world, to our co-workers, our family, our friends, and everybody that we encounter this week. Lord, we love you. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Would you please stand and sing?
We are trying to get a few more for Bible Club. We'll be doing that again this year. We don't go as many weeks, and so it's about 9 weeks. It's really not that difficult, but we would love to rotate so we don't burn anybody out too much. Jason Smith, that's good. I like that. And it is a great, great ministry. So hope you guys have a great, great week. You guys did a fantastic job in Mexico. Way to go. And we'll see you guys next Sunday.